Asheville. And we're here tonight at the Black Town Hall. The reason why last night was so spicy is because we asked real questions, right? We said no stump speeches. We want to talk about the real stuff. So I'm not going to take up a lot of time, but I do want to make some acknowledgments. Like, this is an imperfect, or should I say perfectly imperfect situation that we have set up here this evening. Our moderator is sitting over there, because we want our candidates who are up here to talk out to you and be looking at you and not down at the moderator or on the stage. So we have deliberately set it up this way, and it's not perfect. The sound is not perfect. We did not think about language justice, and we apologize for that. So we're not accommodating some people in here who may have different needs than what we are able to offer, and we're going to figure out how to fix that. For one thing, we have someone who's recording for us, and we're so grateful for that. We're going to upload that, and our friend in the back, Dr. Sada, is going to help us with the translation of that, so we can make this available for all different people throughout Asheville. So that's the perfect situation. That's what we've got, and we're going to keep it moving. All right, thank you for being here. I appreciate you so much, and we're going to turn it over to JD.
So we won't do stump speeches to start, but I'll ask you to start with Jared and introduce yourselves going all the way down.
Shio, Jared Wheatley, D1O. I'm Jared Wheatley, running for City Council as the first Cherokee representative.
Hi, I'm Dan Farrell. My pronouns are they, them, and thanks for having me here.
Thank you guys for having this event. I am Nina Ireland.
Pleasure to be here. My name is Keith Young.
Hey everyone, my name is Maggie Ullman Berthume, like perfume, but I generally go by Maggie Ullman.
Thanks so much for organizing. My name is Blake Butler.
Hi, my name is CJ Snyder.
Fabulous. Can everyone hear the candidates? Yes? Okay. So, as I told the candidates, we're starting with a few yes or no questions. And so, when you hear a question, if you agree, you put your hand up, put your hand down, and if you disagree, you put your hand up, put your hand down. And then once we go through, there are 9 yes or no questions. You'll have a chance to sort of give context to your no's, specifically to your no's, right? And then from there, we'll do a few panel-style conversations where you'll pass the mic from left to right and right to left. And then we'll take audience questions. And then halfway through, if we need a potty break, we'll have one, okay? So feel free to ask me to repeat myself, and we'll sort of go from there. Yeah? Great. First question. Do you agree that the local Black community, while diverse in thought and legacy, has shared common interests and a unique set of obstacles that make events like tonight both useful and necessary for council's understanding of the community? Yes? Hands down? No's. Okay. Number 2, do you agree that certain issues facing the Black community in Asheville, the racial wealth gap, reading comprehension, and justice system involvement, are indicative of the need for systemic change and direct investments into the community to address those issues? Yes? Hands down? No's. Okay. The city's Reparations Commission proposed 39 city actions and recommendations to address past harms and disenfranchisement. Do you support the implementation and prioritization of those actions? Yes? No's. Okay. Do you support Asheville continuing to fund reparations work beyond symbolic resolutions with dedicated dollars each budget cycle? Yes? No's. Okay, marked. At the end, we'll come back to this question for you to contextualize. Do you support setting measurable targets for city contracts going to Black-owned businesses? Yes? Hands down? No's. Okay. Should the city shift additional funding from policing to community-based violence prevention programs?
Repeat it.
Should the city shift funding from policing to community-based violence prevention programs? Yes? Hands down? No's. Okay.
We can qualify our no's, though, right?
Yes, I'm gonna come back to you.
There was a request to repeat it.
Oh, you want the votes again? Do the votes again.
Oh, no, somebody wanted to repeat the question.
The question? The votes. So yes, you agree to shifting funding. Raise your hand. Hands down. No, you disagree. Okay. Last question. Will you commit to not voting for a budget that does not pay all Asheville City employees a living wage? Yes.
Can you repeat it?
Will you commit to not voting for a budget that does not pay all Asheville City employees a living wage? Yes. No's. Okay. So let's hand the mic to Maggie.
Yes.
Is it? Okay, Maggie, contextualize your last no.
Yeah, I think it's also interesting that the person in the seat, I have just a lot of context. So can you read the question again so I can get it precisely to share my thoughts? Which one you want to answer? Thank you.
Sorry.
No.
Will you commit to not voting for a budget that does not pay all city staff employees a living wage?
Great. Thank you for that question. I think that the reason I wasn't able to completely say yes is there's a lot of unknowns. We've seen a $30 million increase in our expenses this year. It's a 12.5% increase. Just like you're feeling your home budget and my home budget go up, the city's expenses are also going up. And so for me, I'm too early in the budget process to make a commitment, and I'm not gonna my integrity says I'm not going to tell you yes when I don't have the information yet. I'm not sure what type of decisions we're going to need to look at to close that gap this year. I have an intention. I believe in the value of continuing to increase pay for our employees and to give them living wages and maintain their excellent health insurance. But as an actual decision maker this budget cycle, I don't feel like we have enough information for me to commit that in this cycle.
Thank you. I'm asking you to hand the mic to Keith. And we're gonna go to the next set of no's for context. And I forgot to say this. If you see my hand, I'm gonna ask you to stop talking. Right? I'm trying to give everybody a minute. You see my hand, and if you ignore my hand, I will bring up my mic. So, Keith, you said no to shifting funding with police. It was Keith, Maggie, and Blake. So we're gonna start with Keith. Yes, I will. Yes. So the question was, should the city shift additional funding from policing to community-based violence prevention programs?
Yeah, so I think it's really just me hearing the question in the way that it's prefaced, which is the key word of shift. So that, to me, that's like, I'm gonna move funding from here to here. And I think that's, for me, it's contextualized in a way where, why can't we have both? Why can't we have policing and the other? Why does it have to be, we're gonna move funding from here to move funding for there, to have both of these systems work correctly? So it's not that I don't support it, I do support it, but I support having both the policing and the community aspect as well.
I agree with Keith here. I think there's a lot of work to do in the community. There's more public-private partnerships that we have not even identified. So I do not agree with shifting that funding, but yet exploring new ways to involve the community better and strengthen the community.
Very similar sentiment to what the gentlemen are sharing. I think that as we're seeing crime adapt across the whole country, Asheville's seen a reduction, 28% reduction in violent crime since 2022. That's also a national trend. So there's something happening, but that also isn't being experienced equitably throughout the neighborhood, throughout all neighborhoods. So I want to say that as we're seeing those adjustments, we need to be able to understand what community programming is needed as well as what policing is needed. And so to me, that comes off as a, should we defund the police for community work? And I think that we should pursue both and solutions.
Okay. I think we're gonna move on to our panel style questions. In recent community conversations.
I think there was one more question that I had, that I'm forgetting what it was, but I think I had my hand up for 3 and those were 2. I did it halfway.
Oh, excuse me, I'm so sorry. The question was, do you support Asheville continuing to fund reparations work beyond symbolic resolutions with dedicated dollars each budget cycle?
Excellent, thank you. So this one is very important, and I was actually just talking to some folks at the news about this. I think it's very important that we follow through with our commitments that we've made to this community, and the city did them a lot with Keith's leadership when he was previously on council. Why I wanted to just make sure we touched on this is, right now, just last week, our mayor was called before Raleigh to explain our work and was explicitly told, the second you spend a money, people are gonna come and sue you. So I think it's very important that as we pursue following through with our very important commitments, that we are very legally strategic so that we take all these steps properly so that we pursue the justice we promised. So I just feel like that's a really important thing for us to say as we're talking about reparations at any point, and I appreciate being able to add that in.
So just to clarify for everyone, do you disagree with continuing with reparations work and funding it every budget cycle, or is it that you don't think you could get it done?
I think that allocating the money and spending the money are going to be two very, very different things in this current political context. And so I support us continuing to put the money aside to commit towards this, but I think we still have a lot of legal jujitsu to do to figure out how to spend those resources.
Sure. So as we move on to our panel style questions, I want to remind everyone that we're about to start picking up the board, so I'll give you 2 more minutes to add in more audience questions before David and Alexandria pick up your boards. So let's pass the mic to CJ, please, and we'll go down the row. In recent community conversations and media coverage, some residents have felt that legacy Black neighborhoods are being implicitly blamed for Asheville's affordable housing shortage. How do you respond to that concern?
Well, I think that our city needs more housing, but it shouldn't come at the cost of displacing other neighbors that already live here. So I think that's a really important conversation to have. And yeah, I don't think we should be displacing people in our legacy neighborhoods.
Like,
So I'm a public relations consultant. I'm a partner in a PR business called Adapt Public Relations, and I think the optics and what has happened with the legacy neighborhoods is unfortunate. You know, it started out, I think, with a great conversation, and in my opinion, it got wrapped into so much more. And it really starts about embracing those neighborhoods, being sure they get the proper recognition, and I hate to see that conversation get pulled into different places. So I'd like to do a reset when it comes to legacy neighborhoods and reapproach this and do it right. And forget the drama, let's get it done. You deserve the recognition, it's time to do it right.
Thanks for this question. I think, can you repeat the actual question? I just want to make sure I'm answering you properly.
many people feel that, in community conversation, recent community conversations and media coverage, some residents feel that legacy neighborhoods are being blamed for Asheville's shortage of affordable housing. How do you respond to that criticism?
Thanks. I do not think that's a fair placement of blame. I think that pursuing our housing crisis with blame as part of the conversation isn't constructive. I think that what's important is for us to figure out how we can set anti-displacement measures that are community-led while also pursuing missing middle housing and our housing goals at the same time. I think it's been difficult to bring those two conversations together over the last year and a half since Helene. I also think that there's been a lot of momentum in the last 2 months really to establish what type of anti-displacement measures could be put in place that wouldn't be symbolic and that could have an impact so that we could pursue again a both and solution where we're looking at anti-displacement methods while we're also pursuing more housing choices to bring down housing costs.
So this stuff just didn't happen overnight. Like, we didn't just wake up after Helene and then black communities get blamed, legacy communities get blamed for displacement. See, what you gotta really understand is black communities are the canary in the coal mine. When this stuff was happening to our community decades ago and it didn't affect greater Asheville, everybody was okay with gentrification. Everybody was okay with our property values rising slowly until suddenly, all of a sudden, that's what it feels like, now it's affecting everybody. So now that it's affecting everybody, now it's a big deal. If we would have taken the time to look at what was happening to legacy and black neighborhoods decades ago with gentrification and displacement, this situation wouldn't be happening to greater Asheville. And that goes with everything from accessibility to housing issues to even living wage jobs. You can't tell me you can't have the trash man not make a living wage job.
Thank you. This is a great question and you hit on a lot of facts, Keith. I was raised in the Easton community right around the corner, and the fact that we have to say legacy means that they once were there. They're not even there at the capacity that they were at before, and they have already been displaced and felt harm. I will say that what I've seen in the media is definitely a pointing of fingers to where developers cannot get their way at city council, and I'm not for that. I am for Miss Middle housing, but I'm for building with intention to the people who are missing that middle housing that are currently here, not to build for people who are just looking to relocate here. I'm also for the fact that we tell a lot of people to read Chapter 5 of the Displacement Disparity Study, but I also encourage people to read Chapter 6, that there are plenty of neighborhoods that are currently ready for Miss Middle housing that has low displacement and low harm impact, but they are not necessarily legacy black neighborhoods, and they are not taking initiative on that. They're just putting ostracizing different neighborhoods. Sorry, I didn't look at you. I was looking at the audience. So my bad.
It's about
I'm
me,
for
sweetie.
it.
Focus.
I'm for it. I know him, so hopefully you won't be too mean to me.
No, of course not. I think we have to talk about where the blame actually belongs. It's on the wealthiest members of our country and our community. People are just constantly being extracted in our neighborhoods over and over again. And legacy neighborhoods are being asked to shoulder the blame for this when it's never been their fault. We've been doing this for, 150 years, just extracting wealth from Black communities. And it needs to stop. It just needs to stop. Housing shouldn't be a financial speculative tool used to make people rich. That is what our community is turning into, and it's turning into less of a community and more just another place for Wall Street to make a lot of money. So the city has a lot of places where we can build housing, we can create density, we can build missing middle housing. Everyone has to take this as their responsibility, not just put it on the hands and backs of Black and brown neighborhoods.
I'm intimately aware with the zoning reform coming before the city and the challenges faced by the neighborhood. As I used to sit on the Planning and Zoning Commission and helped work towards reaffirming anti-displacement measures, I think I've heard the word blame a couple of times, and blame is ineffective, and it's not good at describing the challenge that's actually being faced. The word displacement, contextualized within the room that we're in the community we're around in Black Asheville, I don't think represents the broader conversation within the community. When I speak with the Black community, I hear about ethnocide, the lack of ability to be Black and accepted in Asheville, which is different than displacement. A lot of the time, when folks use the word displacement, they lump in gentrification, which I think is a component of it. But we've seen our Black residents reduced significantly over the last 10 years, and that's a concern.
Thank you. So for my follow-ups, please hand your mic to Dan. So I noticed in your answer you were speaking about how home ownership shouldn't be a wealth building tool. But in the modern conversation, especially around building Black wealth, we do talk about a wealth gap that involves real estate. So if you are on city council, how are you going to champion for closing the wealth gap with Black residents if you don't believe that home ownership should be a wealth building tool?
This is a complicated issue. Part of it is building community wealth, not just individual wealth. We are a group of people working together, trying to build something beautiful. Every part of, sorry, I'm not a person who thinks very well on my feet sometimes, so I'm trying my best. Communities deserve to have wealth be built. Wealth is a concept, right, of how we can choose to live our lives and live it in the best possible way. Like, agency to live our lives is the greatest possible wealth we can have. It's not having more material needs than someone else. It is not having access to shiny things or anything else. It's about being able to live a dignified human life. And if we can assure that, that's the best possible wealth I feel like we can build.
Thank you. To Maggie, and follow-up. So as someone who sits on city council, you spoke about anti-displacement, and you said that there's sort of like a gap between the fight for missing middle housing and the support for anti-displacement. What has your role been in closing that gap, and which side are you falling on at the time?
So I think what I was articulating is that it's taken a while for us to have community conversations and conversations amongst the electeds and with our city staff, who are the professionals we rely on, to get to a point where it looks like we have a shared agreement of what we want to move forward on. Some of that has really come from legacy neighborhoods organizing themselves and really coming up and kind of saying, here's 6 type of things of what anti-displacement could look like. Could we pursue these things? And that I think has come out of some retreats from the legacy neighborhoods organizing themselves. So I think that's a major part of the progress that we're seeing is those neighbors doing that work. I think, just today, I see Kim Roney here, a colleague of mine who's on our Planning, Economic Development, and Environment Committee, and we were talking about looking at both and opportunities to pursue anti-displacement and missing middle at the same time. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to move forward on all of these together. Oh, I'm getting a hand.
Thank you. And then give it to Blake, please. You spoke in your answer about a reset. What does a reset look like to you in a way that also preserves the legacy of legacy neighborhoods?
Well, first of all, I think we got to have the right folks at the table. And like I said before, and just let me use a recent example, we started talking about the possibility of having a social district, and all of a sudden it got pulled into the legacy neighborhoods discussion. And I really think we're going to have to take a step back and be sure that all stakeholders are notified of this reset, that we have made some mistakes in the past. And the optics on legacy neighborhoods are not good, and that people think we spend a lot of time fighting about it. And I don't want that anymore for Asheville. I would like for everybody outside of here to see us on the same page. With our size city, you would think we could come together and figure out some of these problems, but I feel in legacy neighborhoods, we've gone a little bit too far down the path. We need to take a couple steps back and be sure we have the right folks at the table.
We're going to move on, but I just want to clarify when you say the right stakeholders. Can you name some examples of demographics that would be a part of that?
I am still learning, but as a Nashville native
Sure.
and growing up here, I'm putting together our high school reunion for the class of 1986. So I'm going back into Hillcrest, going back into all the neighborhoods where my friends grew up, and I'm starting to reconnect. So I'm still learning and who those right people to sit down at the table are, and I can talk with many up here to find out
Sure.
who those leaders would be.
Thank you. And then pass the mic to Jared. We're on to our next question. Many Black residents have expressed that Asheville's progressive identity does not always translate into measurable improvements in their day-to-day lives. Some describe the city's liberal reputation as performative rather than transformative. Do you think that criticism is fair? Why or why not?
Yeah, I do think it's fair to say that most of the policy we see being discussed is performative. Like we just spoke about with the missing middle housing, there's a tremendous amount of land opportunity outside of legacy neighborhoods to upzone and increase density and focus on areas that are less vulnerable, as others pointed out, to that infill opportunity, and we're not pursuing those paths. So that would be the clearest example I have.
Can you repeat the question one more time? Sorry, I couldn't hear it all the way.
Many Black residents have expressed that Asheville's progressive identity does not always translate into measurable improvements in their day-to-day lives. Some describe the city's liberal reputation as performative rather than transformative. Do you think that criticism is fair? Why or why not?
Yeah, it is fair. Why? Because just look at our neighbors. Like, the material conditions that our neighbors have lived in has not improved. If we are being judged by what the outcomes are, which is what I think we should be judged by, it's not getting better. It's genuinely getting worse. And so, absolutely, we need to do a lot better at figuring out what the outcomes are, creating the right metrics, and actually trying to meet those goals. Like, I think there is definitely a feeling that we can just throw our hands up in the air in the city and be like, we tried our best. I don't think that's good enough. I think we have to try even harder.
Thank you.
I have a lot going through my mind, so I'm trying to articulate it before Jefferson tells me to pass the mic. I do agree with that statement that it is very much performative versus action. Drilling, we hear a lot during the elections, how we're for the residents, how we have a lot of the residents first, and then it feels like when It's not an election cycle or an election year. Business is occurring as usual that trickles down in a negative impact to the locals and the working class here. I told somebody an example, it's like throwing rocks through a window from city council and then running through the house and like, who threw those rocks? So we have to look at the voting trail for people who are in office right now to see if they are voting the same way that they come at you in election candidate cycles as this. Are they voting that way? Or are they saying one thing and doing another when they're here? So I think just looking at the history of who is running for city council, what are their ties, what are their investments are, and I will tell you, if I'm on city council, I don't really have a lot of things, big businesses in my back pocket trying to will me as much as I have the community in my back pocket telling me things that they want to say. And I'm sorry, Jefferson, I keep going over.
Did you use performative in your question?
Yes.
That was what was in there? So I'll give you all an example of something that was performative. When I came on council in 2015, one of the first meetings I had was with then City Manager Gary Jackson and an individual who was over the minority women business contracting for our city. And we had a meeting for almost 3 hours. And at the end of the meeting, I looked at the city manager and asked, why does she still have a job? There hadn't been any contracts given to any black businesses in over 10 years, or something crazy like that. Needless to say, a few weeks later, she was moved out of her position, and we ended up having a disparity study to move from race neutral to race positive contracting in our city. That was something in my mind that was very concrete and performative. Other things you think about, like, you know, when you're sitting in the city meetings and you start to hear about our road conditions and what our capital projects look like, and you want to say that you have a progressive run city that should be really top tier, right? Well, our roads really sucked. Our parks really sucked. We were really behind on development for affordable housing, and we were trying to figure out how to get all these capital projects done. Time's up.
Great question. I think that, yeah, I think that it's, I think that giving every elected grace, especially in North Carolina, there's a lot of expectation that what city council can and can't do. So I think that's a part of it too. I mean, I had a very lengthy conversation about just really heartfelt concern about the education gap between black and white kids. And I feel that concern. I see that as my daughter's in middle school and public school here. City council doesn't have any influence over that, right? And so I think that there is a lot of stuff that we do because the public is so excited, and it's not necessarily all the public. I think that there's liberal Asheville, but there's lots of microcosms of liberal Asheville. So I do think that there are actions that get taken by electeds because the public wants us to stand and lead. But we need to really focus on the core of what our job description is, and sometimes that can bleed, and I work hard to try and navigate that regularly.
I believe progressive is just a label. I'm fine being a progressive city as long as we take care of our people. I'm fine being a progressive city as we recognize the problems we have and we're proactive. I can tell you that I'm not going to be for hiring any more consultants from Albuquerque, New Mexico to tell us where we need to take Asheville from this point on. We got some great minds in this city. And for me, I'm fine with being a progressive city as long as we're forward thinking, as long as we quit talking. We've talked long enough about some of these issues. It's time to take care of our folks and get it done. We just need some new energy on council and need to make some tough decisions. And in some cases, we gotta say no.
I definitely agree with the question. I think there's a lot of opportunities for growth in Asheville regarding affordability, regarding environment, public transportation. These are the types of things I think of when I think of progressive moving forward. So we're expanding and creating new highways when we could be building trains or electric trains and renewable energy powered buses. And public spaces too is an important part. And there's the UNCA trying to cut down the woods, and we already have such little green space in the city, which is really surprising for a city that touts itself as a nature-loving city.
Thank you. So if you'll pass the mic to Nina for my follow-ups.
Do I get 2 minutes?
No, now you have 59 seconds. Don't play with me. In your answer, you talked about you had a critiques for city council and how they move right now. And so I'm curious how you would see your role on city council. Do you think it's your job to put forward an agenda that you think is going to help the city, or do you see yourself as someone who would represent the voice of the people?
The voice of the people, and putting their agenda first. Being elected to city council means that I'm elected about the residents here, not the people that are necessarily wanting to come in and do business here. And I would say that I'm not afraid to do the work in front of the people and be able to take the hard questions and to navigate through it. I would be one vote on city council, but it will be a vote from the resident standpoint and the people who actually live and work here. Yeah, I hope I'm answering that part of your question. But yeah, I'm willing to do the work.
And then my other follow-up is for Keith. You spoke about Black businesses not having contracts. And to Maggie's point, there's certain things that council can and cannot do. And so I'm curious what your role would be on city council and what has it been in the past to advocate for the creation of more Black businesses or the closing the gap for the Black businesses who aren't getting those contracts?
Well, I already did that, but I'm not there now. That was the disparity study that we did that would legally help us move from a race neutral to a race positive concept of looking at legally what has happened historically in the city for contracting on Black businesses and minority businesses and such, and how we end up moving that needle to make sure that these contracts are equitable, to make sure that we have a pipeline for businesses who did not meet certain criteria before. How do we get them to meet that criteria? What I would simply do is come back to make sure that, are we still focusing on that? Are we doing that in the right way? Are we hitting the legal metrics? And do we have measurable outcomes that see results? That is the thing. Like, we can be performative all day, but people want results. And if you don't have results to give them, doesn't matter how great the policy is. So to make sure that the results are there, to continue to work.
Just to clarify, are you saying that the work you did before would have closed the gap and it's not being executed? Or are you saying it's being executed just ineffectively?
To be honest with you, I don't know how it's being executed right now. I see the work. I see the guys that are in that department. You know, I get emails 2-3 times a day from somebody that's doing that work. I don't know what the results are.
Sure.
I'm not on the inside getting those numbers on how many businesses got these contracts, how many businesses are in the pipeline, how many people actually applied, how many people, the data, the metrics, the numbers that say, we did this policy and these are the results. And if we don't have the results, we need to go back in and figure out what did work. Okay, let's do more of that. What didn't work? Let's take that out. I don't know if we're doing that.
Thank you. And so I know Nina wanted to respond, but I'm actually going to ask Maggie to respond, because it seems like you would be the best on stage to answer if the work is not being done, or if you think perhaps it's just not being done as well as Keith would like.
Well, I can't guess exactly how Keith would like it to be done. What I'd say is we are seeing progress on it, and I'm happy to pull the data and share it, but I'm not going to misquote the numbers because it hasn't been within the last 6 months and I need it written out. I think that there is a lot of room for improvement, and I think part of what the study talked about is that our ability to use the government's purchasing power to support Black businesses is one aspect that needs to be addressed. But there also needs to be work that goes beyond our purchasing power, because there's big types of work that we spend our money on, that there aren't businesses in the region. So there's kind of more of a pipeline that needs to be developed beyond just our purchasing power. And so that is one of the things that I think that we could do more with. Another thing is, in particular, as we look forward to having nearly $1 billion of federal recovery money, we're putting aside money for workforce development, because we know that in general, outside of Black businesses, we're going to have trouble spending all that money locally. And so what do we need to do to develop more of a workforce? So I think that's a very timely opportunity where we actually have money dedicated to do workforce development, that we could really infuse the goals that we have for our minority business program, because there's some resources coming in. And so I think there's more that we can do, and right now it's a timely opportunity.
Can I just ask as a follow-up, do you think it's a fair criticism to say that the effort is happening because money is coming down, but does that mean that we can only develop Black and brown businesses because of a tragedy that somebody else is funding?
No, I don't think that's fair.
Okay.
I think we could be talking about sidewalks, we could be talking about climate, we could be talking about various things. Nothing moves forward unless there's money. And so in the landscape of being practical and keeping the nose to the grindstone to achieve our goals, when there's infusion of resources, it allows us to go, what have we said we really believe in? Yes, let's match make a new resource to something that we've already committed to. So I think it's more about being in this role is always being opportunistic. When new resources come about, you then match make it to things that we already care about.
Sure, thank you. And then Nina, you had your hand up.
Well, thank you for speaking on the funding part to some of that. I will say that there were things post or pre-Helene that were there for Black and brown businesses, like the Strategic Partnership Fund that depleted out and didn't really give the community any word as to why. I think is and seeing how we can start that back up for different nonprofit works that are in the community as well. I will say that I do get a lot of emails from Marcus Kirkman in the Business Inclusion Office every day. And after speaking with him today, there's like 4 different types of biddings out there. And he needs to know about all businesses and every single one, because there are some that just never hit the website. But one big proponent is investment in my platform. And I believe that we need to invest more economically diverse in this city, because we don't have the right type of Black and brown businesses to bid on larger contracts, and we need to get our youth and some of us re-educated so we can have skin in the game on that side. Now I just wanted to say earlier, from the city standpoint, we look very, from the performative part, we look very inclusive from what our city staff looks like, but it doesn't reflect to the residents on who are actually living in the Asheville city limits. So we just need to change that and have our city looks like the way it is in the hiring, staff. I feel like it's very diverse, but it doesn't reflect the city.
Thank you. I'm going to do a curveball to myself. Because Maggie said something that I thought was really interesting. She said nothing happens unless there's money. And so I'm curious if any of you on stage want to respond to that, and also if you have any ideas on how to create more money that is not a tragedy. Who wants to go? Go ahead.
So I can respond like, yes, we had Hurricane Helene. Very tragic. It's gonna cost millions of dollars to recover, right? But prior to that, what happened? When I was on council, we ended up earning a little bit, right before I got there, the highest credit rating, or when I was there, the highest credit rating that a city could have, right? I think we had somewhere that fluctuated anywhere between $12 and $16 million of the fund balance. We had the benefit of having one of our council members who was actually a CPA, I believe. She was very stalwart on the budget, and we all learned a lot from that. We also learned a lot from the folks that we had in our budgeting office. What I'm really getting at, though, is we had 4 to 5 year projections of things that would happen, sometimes pushed out to 10 years. Time's up.
Right, so make sure everyone gets a chance. Anyone else want to respond? Jared?
So when it comes to money, it's interesting. Currently, the city is land banking on land that was taken through urban renewal. So that's an excellent opportunity where the city already owns an asset that obviously they're not paying taxes on. So to reinvest that land back into the community or land back to the Black community that the land was taken from creates an economic opportunity. Right now, many of those parcels are being underutilized already, so providing those back to the community they were taken from, that's an opportunity like planting a seed for some kind of generation of business from the community, which could include workforce development.
Anybody else want to respond? Dan?
So I think there's two parts to this. The first one is we have to look at local spending. Our residents are being hammered by unaffordability. And a lot of our funding comes from tourism dollars, and tourism dollars aren't always going to be here every time you look for them. So addressing the affordability crisis is one way that we can start looking at building community wealth and putting money back into our community. The other way is my day job is working with credit unions, and credit unions are just a form of working like with community capital. Like we are investing our money together for a better Asheville. There's ways to build credit unions that are solely focused on building financial platforms in Asheville for Asheville businesses, reducing credit card interchange fees, actually doing small lending. There are so many ways that we're ultimately buy local community. We want to buy local. We want to be builders of our local community. We just don't have a financial platform to do it. So building one that builds financial tools for our community so that we can build those small businesses, so that they can get the loans, so they can build the first thing, so that they can get there, is critical.
And then pass it to Blake and then we'll move on.
I was just going to add, I think it's really time to sit down and see when we can come together with the county and start to consolidate some services, start to share some monies. And I'll give you an example, and I'm really trying to drill down on the homeless issue here in Asheville. I'm talking about it, I really am. And knowing that the police know the 35 mentally ill people that make up that homeless population, I've been told multiple times, well, the city doesn't have any money for the mentally ill, but the county does. So again, we now have DK, came over from the county. She's super smart. She's now over on the city side. Isn't there something we can do together? We're going to be a metropolitan area within a year. We already are in a lot of folks' eyes. It's time to consolidate, share services and finances to tackle the most pressing problems. And I'm really happy we got DK on our side now. In the city side, we can drill down and start to talk about that.
Thank you, Pastor CJ. Okay. Final panel question before we take a break and then go to audience questions. And I know I didn't give you a chance to stomp earlier, so consider this your chance to stomp a little, and maybe I'll be more forgiving on time. 10 seconds extra. What is one position you hold, just one, that you would keep talking about, even if polls show it was unpopular, even if it means you might lose this race?
Okay, one more time.
What is one position that you hold that you will keep talking about, even if you know it's unpopular and it would cause you to lose this race?
Well, I think it could cause me to lose the race, but I do think it's very popular. It's that we need to enact policies that benefit the people and not wealthy investors or developers or focused on profits for larger corporations. I do believe in supporting smaller businesses. And yeah, I mean, we got to make life better for Asheville, for Ashevilleans. For the vast majority of the people are having trouble with affording basic needs, and a lot of people who make the city run, teachers, artists, service workers, are having trouble paying their bills, and it's causing a lot of people to leave or to be homeless. And I think that's a really important issue, and every day that we don't meet people's basic needs, then people will die, and I think that's a really huge tragedy.
Blake?
now that we have a $30 million deficit, I've been very clear that I want to look at infrastructure and core services spending and put some of these boutique projects on hold for a little while. Secondly, I support police, fire, and first responders. Like I said, I'm an Asheville native. I think it's essential for us to support that, especially those groups, especially when a community is coming back online, and we still got a lot of work to do.
Maybe I'm taking some of these questions super literally, but I do think it's part of what you said I think is really important about, as an elected, what would I drive forward if it was unpopular?
Sorry, as a candidate, what will you keep speaking about that's core to your values? I mean, even if it's unpopular.
And I guess what I want to say is, I think it's really, every day I wake up and try and spend as much time as I can out in all the different micro communities of Asheville, because I feel like I'm here to do what you all want. And there's lots of different buckets of you all. And so I think that if something's like clearly super unpopular, then we have to have a conversation of like, is this worth doing? That's my weeds of it. What I would say is something I'm extremely grateful that has a lot of support right now, because it's not always had support, is having really resilient infrastructure. Infrastructure can be very boring to many people, whether it's potholes or water maintenance. But that is literally like the backbone of our city. I get so excited about the potential of having such excellent core infrastructure. And right now, after Helene, I think we all experienced what fractures in that consistency did to us, what we experienced. And so it is very popular right now, and I'm glad we're seeing that. And even when things start working again consistently and people aren't asking for it, I will continue fighting for that, because I think that's an essential base service that cities are here for.
Can you do me a favor and
Yes, sir.
read that question again? Because this is really hitting home right here. Go ahead.
What is one position you hold that you would keep talking about, even if polls showed it wasn't popular, and it means you might lose this race?
It's already happened to me. It already happened to me. It already happened to me. In 2020, I hold people accountable for the things that happen in this community, the results that you want to see. I hold people accountable, even if they look like me. I was instrumental in helping bring our first Black city manager to the city. And toward the end of my tenure, I didn't think she was holding folks accountable for the results that we had. Many of you remember me for reparations. That was the last thing I did. And then I lost the election in November the 20th, 2023, or November 3rd, 2020, something like that. But it already happened. I lost. I think a big part of that was holding people accountable when it was unpopular. Especially somebody who was the first, somebody who looked like me. And doing that for other things. I wasn't the most popular person, probably, to a lot of folks. I get that. But I do it nonetheless, because you all deserve results.
Nina?
That's a good one, Keith. I would say one that might be unpopular, that I want to hold people hold accountable, would be TDA reform. That is one big one that I think that's going to ban the city and the county and everybody else around the state to come to the state to say, hey, we have a really high tourism population and growth, or that is where a lot of our economy comes from, and it doesn't really pour back into the fire, the police, sanitation, the trash, and they heavily use that system. And it has been changed in South Carolina to where their TDA can go back into general government uses and support that $30 million deficit that we're facing when they go in the surplus usually every year. So that might not be a popular thing that they want to talk about. I'm not for their jobs. I'm just for how the funding needs to be reallocated back into the general government uses. And I'm not necessarily for defunding the police, but I am for if there is funding that can be shifted to help community in a way that police cannot respond or fire cannot respond, that needs to be done. But I am all for making sure that these people get paid. Fire, police, EMT, and all.
For me, it's that housing is a human right. What good is having a city if our neighbors can't live here? What good is having recovery if not everyone's here to share in it? I think we need to do as much as we can to make sure our neighbors can afford to live in this beautiful city, this beautiful community that we have built and worked on together. And it's going to make some people pretty mad, because in order to do that, some people are going to lose out on money. Some people are not going to be able to make the profits they want to. It's going to be a pretty ugly fight if we really want to make sure our neighbors can afford to live here. And from today until the day I die, I believe that we all deserve to live a good life, one where we have food on the table, where we have a roof over our head, that we have healthcare, access to joy, access to education. And these are things worth fighting for. They're honestly, to me, the only thing worth fighting for is our community and the way we can live a good, beautiful, joyful life. So,
Thank you. Jared?
I gotta say, dang, it is hard to follow Keith and Nina up here. They were awesome and hit the nail on the head that it's super unpopular to hold people accountable to the commitments they make, even when they make them in a public platform, even when they make them on a public platform over multiple years. And Nina's absolutely right about the TDA. I think there are many opportunities, even under the current structure, to work with the TDA for more community investment. However, I'm focused on cultural empowerment, and what that looks like in the Black community is self-determination. So I feel if the Black community isn't leading the conversations within their neighborhoods, within the lands around urban renewal, I think we're missing out. It's super unpopular to just say that North Asheville has its culture, its identity. It doesn't really have to defend it. It can defend it, but really politically it doesn't have to, because they already know the power they keep. I think there are smaller communities that don't get the opportunity to be really empowered, and so that's what I'm focused on.
Thank you. A few follow-ups. Pass it to Blake, please. Blake, when in a few of your answers, you talked a lot about communities coming together and finding the best stakeholders. And I think based off what Jared just answered, I'm curious how you see the Black community with self-determination through some of this collaboration, right? Like, is there a way through your view of a reset and through collaboration for the Black community to have agency and self-determination while also performing the reset you will be fighting for?
Absolutely, and I think, it's just a different approach. I think just to be sure everybody's at the table, I think we take off in one direction and we leave those important voices behind. And for me personally, I approach things like a communications plan or a crisis communications plan. If we make a change and make a shift, are we letting all the stakeholders and those folks that will be affected know? And who are the right leaders to convey that message out in the community? I think that's real important too, to have the right people at the table. And so collaboration really starts with making a couple of tough choices, but being sure that everybody's included and not left behind.
Thank you. Then my last one's for CJ. When you spoke, you mentioned one of your answers about UNCA's new development project, and you talked a lot about sort of how we're making sure that the prosperity of Asheville is for everyone. And so I'm curious, if you're on city council, what does that advocacy look like where UNCA has X amount of rights to develop for their students and their constituents, but you're also inviting more people to have buy-in, with the caveat that so many people in Asheville use green space as a way to reduce development, which then starts us back to the legacy neighborhood conversation. I know. That was long, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Stop me if I'm not answering it right. But it's kind of like some other people have said before, there's other places we can build into. I don't think we need to eliminate what little green space we have. And I actually live in that 5 Points neighborhood that backs up to the woods, and it's deeply unpopular with pretty much everybody in the neighborhood. And I mean, Asheville wants to market itself as a green nature city that brings in tourism. So I think it's important that we don't just walk the walk. We do what we say is important. And yeah.
No, that was great. Thank you. Those are all my questions. Oh wait, sorry. Go ahead, Jared.
I would just like to follow up on the Save the Woods and some of the anti-development focus that happens in wealthier, predominantly white neighborhoods in Asheville. That puts added strain on lower income neighborhoods and also development outside of Asheville in the county. So in the case of building large multifamily developments, a lot of that's happening in the county, and then folks have to come into the city, and that auto-oriented development, what it does is it drastically increases the value of any housing close to services, and a lot of the times that's legacy neighborhoods. So by pushing development out of the city, it actually increases all the value and the pressure inside the city. So I think there's great opportunity in unpopular places to develop that don't rely on legacy neighborhoods to see that growth.
Thank you. Any other follow-ups before we take a potty break? No? Okay. So I'm gonna give everybody 5 minutes to go to the restroom while we gather all of our audience questions, and then we'll come back. And I know I got yelled at, so I'll give y'all 5 minutes. Audience questions tonight, I wanted to say them also respecting that this is a long format, and it's late at night, so thank you all for bearing with us. So, the way the audience questions work, they submitted them, they wrote them down. You don't have to answer these. I'm not gonna make you answer them. So I'm gonna ask the question, and you talk to your friends on the stage if you want the mic. And then if we need to go back and forth, we will. But this is between y'all and the audience, yes? Okay. So, first question. How can we make public housing safer for residents? How do we find key people in those communities to collaborate with and to empower? Nina.
I think we can make public housing safer for residents when we start doing, like Blake said earlier, partnering city and county funding to send, to expand services, but send the right people out for the right cause. A lot of the time, the main person to go out is either fire or police, and it ends up in a negative situation as far as what happens with the outcomes with the people who are involved, but also negative outcomes for the kids in the community that has to witness what just went down. So I think if we pour into our neighborhoods, our resiliency hubs that are going to be resilient beyond just a storm, that they can be places where neighborhoods can go and find things, but also to community paramedics, because fire and police cannot administer medication, and we just need to look at other ways to fund this and respond to the community in a best way.
And this was public housing?
Yes.
How to make it more safer?
Yes. And finding people in the community to help you with that, to empower. How do you find people in those communities to collaborate and empower them to make public housing?
Yeah, there are people in public housing that have a great deal of compassion and respect for how they want to live their lives. So like, empower those people. Give them the resources to not be scared to call the police, to not be scared to call out things that's happening in their neighborhood, to not be scared that their next door neighbor is going to go off on them in a way that's going to, you got to empower those people. I'll try to keep my answer short, but there's multiple ways to do it, but you got to empower the people that live there first.
I want to quickly follow up with that.
Yeah.
What does it mean to empower people to feel comfortable calling the police? And what does it mean, and what burden does the police have to make the community comfortable to call them?
I mean, so usually, here's the thing, when you call police are coming after something already done happened. They're not coming to prevent it. They're coming to clean up some shooting something already happened that they have to be called. So how do you empower those folks? You empower those folks with, I think there's new leadership in the public housing. I don't remember the lady's name. I think it's Ella. I'm not sure. But they have to work hand in hand with the folks in the community and collaboratively figure out what is it that you need from us? What resources do you need from, say, police? What resources do you need to help you feel comfortable saying, I don't want to live with this type of dangerous culture or whatever it may be that's making your quality of life a poor quality of life.
Thank you. Blake and then Jared, because you had your hand up earlier.
No.
You good?
No.
Then, oh, CJ. Sorry, man. CJ and then Jared. He can wait.
Yeah, I think crime, safety is deeply tied to affordability and having your basic needs. And I think it comes down to if people are having access to healthcare and housing and just economic mobility as well. So that's also tied to adequate employment. Before sending police, maybe we send social workers or a form of community-oriented safety operation.
Jared.
Well, I just wanted to say that this goes back a little bit to police funding and how the budget may be set up. And I think there's always a good opportunity to have kind of that more beatnik cop type rotation where folks spend time on foot in the community with the neighbors and get to know people by their name and just building that real relationship oriented focus with the police to where when not even nonviolent, mental health, whatever issue may arrive, they know how the people in the neighborhood communicate, and they know leadership within that community they can reach out to if the police need support in those situations.
Dan and then Nina. And then we're moving on.
I think we just have to listen in a lot of ways. We are co-creating a community with people in public housing. And as neighbors at city council, listening and figuring out what their needs are, because each individual place is going to be different. Every neighborhood, every community is going to be different. Figuring out what their needs are and helping them actualize those goals is what our responsibility is. That means putting effort and putting time and energy and resources into giving people what they need, the tools they need to make their community better. They have the answers already in there. They just need the resources to do it. And city council can do it. We just have to take the time and the energy and make it a priority.
Nina.
I mentioned resiliency hubs, but also we have community healthcare workers, and that was what I was going to allude to Keith's response as to what you were saying as to how to equip the public housing and people there before calling the cops. And one way too is that the community healthcare workers could be, part of the solution for security for just like the pools and different things that are coming up this year, instead of outsourcing a lot of that funding to somebody outside of Asheville and somebody outside of the community. We need to better equip our residents to handle situations, because Keith is right, police is reactive, not proactive.
Sure. Next audience question. What programs and incentives currently exist for Black businesses? And so I want to sort of frame that, because you may not all have the answer to that. But can you speak to any programs that exist for economic mobility and for Black businesses? And if you can and you have ideas, I invite you to share those as well.
Say that again.
What programs and incentives currently exist for Black and brown businesses, for Black businesses? And I'm saying if you don't know the answer to that and you have ideas, I invite you to share that as well.
So I'm a local general contractor. The lens I look at for MBWE businesses is really through construction contracting. And what I've found, both for my own company, I'm a very small company, and other BIPOC companies, excuse me, is that often we don't have the business administrative support built into our organizations yet to provide the paperwork and the insurances and the coverages required for city contracts. So though we have a lot of these programs in place, the threshold to even get engaged in those programs is something that I think could be fine-tuned to bring more people into the conversation.
I'm gonna pass it to Maggie, but you know I got
Okay.
Yes, so what Jared was saying, and I think we talked about this earlier when there was a question about is the city's MWE program going far enough? And we talked about it has a lot of improvement. I also just want to make sure that we talk about there's a lot of really good community partners who are doing interesting work and working out. I mean, Alexandra in the back, it's not necessarily a program, but she's basically creating an incubator for small BIPOC businesses. And so there's stuff that are very organically growing up by community leaders like Alexandria, as well as programs that much more established business organizations. I mean, the Chamber of Commerce is just restarting a Black business program. Also, Mountain BizWorks does stuff and has specific BIPOC outreach and specific tools. So I think that we've seen, and I can't help but think about this question and think of Mr. Bacote in the back, who's been talking about really and leading Black business leadership for a very long time. I think there's been many cycles and waves, and so those are just some that I'm sharing now that I'm aware of that are currently in the current wave and cycle.
Sure, I have a follow-up, then we're going to Nina. Because something we talked about earlier is our shared common interest, right, as a Black community. And something that I think a lot of people in this room would also acknowledge is that part of the city's performance, if there is performative nature, is that it relies on a few community leaders who aren't representatives to do a lot of community work. And so with that response, I'm curious if we can expand what our elected officials could do so we're not burdening the folks in this room to save the community that the city has harmed.
I'm trying to catch up from the Black business question to this. Can you just elaborate some more? I don't know if I understand.
Because in your response to that, you talked a lot about private businesses and partners. But the question from the audience was about what can the city do and elected officials.
Oh, okay. I didn't understand that part of the initial question.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I just thought it was kind of asking about like what community efforts are out there. So I think when it comes to the city, Jared really referenced our minority business program, and I think that that's the main thing that we can point to at this point.
Sure.
And then also the opportunity, as we have a lot of federal money coming in, is another opportunity.
Thank you, Nina, and then Blake.
I'm gonna sit on my hands.
Nina, Keith, then Blake.
So, I like to think outside of the box and think creatively. I'm not going to pronounce her last name, but a lot of you guys maybe know Rosanna, who used to work for the city as well. And we had a conversation, because you guys mentioned the different things that are kind of connected to the city from the Black Business Alliance group and Alexandria's group that are taking off. I think we need to, one thing is that Black people find that they have to go through like these gatekeeping doors in order to get things that they don't have to be gatekeeped about for white businesses or white owners and different things. So I think the city can really help out and do, like Rosanna told me about a job that she had where she implemented different governmental programs across different governments. And one that she was really proud of was in Memphis, Tennessee, where the city offered a general contracting course for Black businesses or Black inspiring general contractors. It got them through the program, and at the end, the city gave them a $25,000 grant to go towards the first bidding projects to be able to put some skin in the game. We can do those kind of things. Why not? We can do those kind of things. We gotta get creative with the budget. We gotta be transparent about the budget. We shouldn't be spending in ways that people are like, hey, I request that budget and never get it 6 months down the road just to see where the dollars are going. This is our city, and we need to be more accountable to the people who are looking at us and electing us to be accountable to them. Nobody on the outside is electing us. I mean, they can put their, bids out there to who to elect, but we as elected officials are the ones that need to be accountable to the people who live and work here as well.
So I feel like I'm on Wheel of Fortune where they got all the letters filled in except for one, and you're screaming at the TV like, look, we at the the end of my tenure in 2020, we passed this thing called reparations. And we addressed all these different issues and specifically got a whole bunch of community people around the table to address exactly what you're talking about. So all of what everybody said, but more importantly, all of the stuff that folks from the community who were sitting here that went out and got information from folks to say, here's what we believe we need. So can we start looking at that and acting like it don't exist? And just for the record, I've never actually been an elected official to actually see reparations through. So just saying that. But yeah, we got that thing. It's here. It's got some stuff in it. We can read it.
39 recommendations to be exact.
I was just going to add, and this is going to be a throwback for those old school Asheville people. I was always fond of the Allen Center, if you remember that right there to the left of the tunnel, because it had so many great agencies and businesses and nonprofits that complemented each other. And think about that, and when we talk about how do we set up so businesses can complement each other, Black businesses in particular. And that's, again, just something I remember from Asheville. And back then, as you remember, our slogan was Cool, Green, Asheville. Folks, we can get that back now. We really can. We just got to get back on the same page and think outside the box. Identify some new ideas.
Thank you. Next audience question. Okay. Do you have a vision for a new way of connecting with our unhoused community and providing much needed services right away instead of waiting for months?
Yeah, well,
Okay, CJ.
I mean, the first thing is providing housing. I think one of the issues that we haven't talked a lot about tonight is short-term rentals, and there's a lot of houses that are sitting empty a lot of the time, and so yeah, number one is providing housing, and also I'm interested in community land trusts and providing permanently affordable housing options, and also social housing where the residents can make their own decisions about what goes on in their housing complex. And they only pay a percentage of their income, so if they get laid off, then, you know, they pay a percentage of their income, so anyways.
And then Nina, I think you raised your hand.
I think we hit on it earlier again when Blake mentioned the city-county partnerships and just mentioning sending the right people and the right tools. I'm one of those millennials that was staying with parents, and I say that I probably got my affordable apartment complex in the River Arts District because Helene happened and probably displaced another resident, unfortunately. I have a brother who is up and down Haywood Road and Patton Avenue because he has mental health issues right now and substance abuse problems that keeps him unhoused right now. So we have to look at the things to prevent these things. Prevention is key. And if it wasn't for my parents, or if something happened to them, I don't know what my housing situation would look like. And we also have people who are single parents, who have been a part of domestic violence or different things like that, that might tip them over the edge. So if we can look at the factors at what causes us to be unhoused and look at rental support or rental assistance, eviction protection and prevention, also building this middle housing again with intent, because a lot of the middle housing that people want to build is still out of the price range for Black, brown, and even white families to afford. So I think if we just be more intentional with the things that the city is actually asking us to do, then we can go from there. And I'm sorry.
Who else wants to speak?
Dan, then Jared.
I'll let Jared go first. Much to what Nina said, a lot of the most important things we can do is prevent people from becoming homeless. I was homeless for about 11 months in 2004, and that's because my income wasn't there. I got kicked out because I was gay. My life being homeless drastically shaped my opinion of what we can do when it comes to housing. The best thing we can always do is keep people in their housing. The second most important thing we could do is enact housing first legislation. Put people in houses that are currently unhomed. It is the most cost-effective way to solve the homeless issue in the United States. It has been proven over and over again. Putting people in houses is the best way to reduce costs, the best way to have the best outcomes. And the fact that we haven't done it is a mismatch of priorities.
Jared and Keith.
I think Nina hit on a great point. When it comes to the budget, the county is responsible for health services, and the unhoused are obviously part of a tremendous impact on our community health. And so the county may have the same budget deficit, shortfall, gap, whatever we have, but I think interweaving those resources as much as possible is super important. Additionally, what I find as a downtown resident and general contractors, there's a lot of homeless folks who are downtown who can't make it to shelters up Leicester Highway. So finding those shelters centrally located to where they don't have to commute at the end of the day. I've employed homeless people literally this week, folks who come to me on a regular basis and say, hey, if you've got one day of work, I'll take what you can pay. And they literally work with me on job sites. And then they say, well, I can't, if I work till 4, if I work till 5, I can't get to the shelter up Leicester Highway. So centrally located services is important.
Keith, and then we'll move on. And then Maggie, and then we'll move on.
I mean, this is a real serious issue that has lots of moving pieces, and it's kind of just thinking about this anecdotally. As I work downtown and talking to a lot of different people. You have folks that they're just perpetually homeless and they're here, and you know who they are, and you kind of know where you can find them. And you have people that are moving through. You have people that have substance abuse issues. You have people that have mental health issues, and you have people that are just comfortable where they're at. And just trying to figure out, how do we kind of triage that? How do we get people out there to kind of like start tracking these people and getting the ones who actually do want services where they need to have those services? So the first thing is kind of like a triage of who's just moving through, who's kind of, everybody knows Bobby. Bobby hangs out at the bus stop every day. He's right here. We know we can get Bobby some help. Bobby just fell on hard times or whatever happened. But how do we triage those folks and get some of those people the connections and services that they need, and getting those resources to those services, and connect the county, the city, and some of the private stuff and the nonprofit stuff to work with the folks and getting them off the street if they want to be. I know some folks who live downtown, it's kind of one of those out of sight, out of mind, and we'd rather just not see them as opposed to getting them the help that they need.
Maggie.
Yeah, something I'd add is when I have been considering the role that I play in trying to address this, I always just have to start at the anchor of, this could be me, this could be my sister, this could be my mother. And so really having a human dignity center to then apply, okay, well, what can we do more? Because it is a problem. I think something that has been really creative and effective that we've recently implemented is in partnership with downtown, by having the Downtown Improvement District, where essentially the property owners of downtown businesses are supporting a workforce development program. And so those folks are out on the streets cleaning and removing graffiti and picking up garbage and watering planters, and the vast majority of those folks in this new workforce program are previously unhoused or previously incarcerated. So I think that's a really important part of the suite, from providing dignity in housing and shelter. There's a whole pipeline, as several folks have mentioned. There's people experiencing homeless at different stages, so we need services to support them at different stages, and I think workforce options and work out of homelessness is a really important thing that we've seen progress on recently also.
Thank you. Next audience question. How do you plan to solve the racial achievement gap in Asheville City Schools? Which we should call the opportunity gap. But still, how do you plan to solve the racial achievement gap in Asheville City Schools?
I'll start with that one. I think context that really matters is, recently Asheville decided that instead of city council appointing the school boards, that we would vote for our school board leadership. And that is maybe 4 years old. I think that's a really important step because now having direct voter accountability to the board of the schools allows us to really hold them accountable to get better results. And so then my second caveat is Asheville City Council, I think because we don't have like jurisdiction or direct policy oversight, I think that we can use our soft power and influence to continue working with our colleagues that are now elected to the school board, also our colleagues on the county commission who have a real hand in teacher pay. So I think this, to me, a role that elected city council can step into is using the relationships we build through our leadership and to support the public electing good people to the school board.
We're just gonna go down. Keith, Nina, then Dan.
All of the issues that we talked about here tonight, especially as it pertains to the Black community, they're all interconnected. That was what reparations was about. When you look at housing, criminal justice, economics, education, the health disparities in our community, and when you start talking about the educational gap between Black and white students, we can't look at it with a myopic view, thinking that it's just the teachers. It's no. Your kid doesn't live in good housing. And the criminal justice system is affecting what he can do, and his parents don't have the economics, and the health care isn't good because the whole family has diabetes, and mom only has a 10th grade education. All of it's interconnected, so you have to deal with every single pocket of what we're talking about, as opposed to just saying, well, if we give the schools more money and we elect the school board, everything will be great. That's not how it works. So I'll say this again, 2020, we did this thing that kind of addresses all of this stuff. You might want to look at some of that stuff.
Can I jump back on?
Sure.
I do feel a little bit like that might have been fighting words based on what I just said. So tell me what you did do to support schools, or tell me what you would do from your role. I agree that things are very interconnected, but we're trying to answer the questions here, right?
You can respond 30 seconds, then I'm giving it to Nina.
Well, there is a school that is doing really good work, and we all know it by Peak Academy. So I didn't stay at the table very long, but I remember those very first meetings of Peak Academy and being at the table and folks asking about some of these different things and then providing that support around them. And I do think they have come to City Council and asked for help to continue that good work. That's great. Let's keep doing that stuff. Let's keep working on those different things from criminal justice, economics, housing, healthcare, education, and not look at things in a myopic view.
So the city is, I guess, a little bit more limited as direct influence upon the Asheville City school system, and I've found out that kind of like the pay structure might come from like a county thing. But one thing I can say that we can help with is the supportive services. Again, the Strategic Partnership Fund funded a lot of nonprofits in the community that did a lot of work for our youth that is now down to zero and is not really being looked at as to refund or replenish. So that is something that the city can specifically do, is to fund the local nonprofits that fund and pour into our youth literacy. Also to speak to Peak Academy, after talking with Dr. Mullen last year, one thing that the city can actually do, or we can try to hold as we elect these school board officials, is finding them a permanent home to have Peak Academy with a functioning cafeteria and different things like that. They are almost at capacity at the Reed Center or the Eddington Center, and but they're not at capacity of growing. So we can do a lot, in my opinion, with the different empty buildings that are just sitting around Asheville. And I heard that there's one school that is just collecting storage that Peak Academy could be at. So there's plenty that the city can do that I think can help fund and bridge that literacy gap. We shouldn't be, after talking with Jess Young McClain, who was with Read to Succeed and on your ballot, we can do a little bit more to bridge that gap.
Sorry, I get a little passionate. I got my kids in here. They shouldn't be part of that.
So much of what Keith said is absolutely correct. This is a holistic issue. There's so many things on the table that we need to talk about and that we need to address, but one specifically I want to talk about is pre-K. Making sure we have pre-K outcomes is one of the most, I know I say it's cost effective, but my Lord, when you look at what it does to outcomes. Pre-K is the most effective thing we can spend our money on every single time. It has been proven in every single municipality where you spend money on pre-K. Outcomes are better for education. Outcomes are better for earning income. Outcomes are better for criminal justice outcomes. Like, there is never going to be a scenario where if we do not fund pre-K, we are not going to see better results.
Thank you. Anyone else want to respond? No? Next question? Okay. Okay. If you're elected to city council, will you honestly vote based on facts and will be in the best interest of your constituents rather than following the vote of your buddies on council?
Following the vote of what?
Of your buddies on council. Will you vote for the best interest of your constituents rather than your buddies?
I'm going to take this one because I have the mic in my hand. Sorry, y'all. Absolutely. I'm a person who does a lot of research. I look at and investigate the facts. I look for what is evidence-based, what actually works in communities. I love talking to people and figuring out what's the best plan. What everyone else thinks on city council isn't my prerogative. I need to work with them. I need to work to build things. But how they vote isn't what matters. It's doing something right for my community. And that's truly what we're all supposed to be here to do. We're not supposed to just be chummy. We're supposed to be honest and engaged and truthful to our neighbors in our community.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. I think it's hard to be authentic. It's hard to have integrity in a public forum where there is a lot of desire to have consensus. That's one of the most popular questions that I've seen kind of leveraged at candidates is, how are you going to get along? How are you going to, fit in? And I think contrasting opinions are really important, and being willing to be a dissenting vote and not match with whatever the dominant culture has to say is vital. Yeah. That being said, folks who may be performing this kind of equity bridge and this equity construct, but then not aligning with that on a vote, or even allowing those types of votes to come before folks to really understand where city council lands, I think we should have more transparency on where city council really is, even if that looks like disequity, even if it looks like something we don't want to happen, but to know why we're there.
Yep, right.
Anyone else?
Yeah, sometimes your buddies are right. Sometimes. But beyond that, I think when you look at something like that, it's a really weird question because there's more ways to get to 4 than just 2 plus 2. Sometimes it's 3 plus 1, sometimes it's 5 minus 1. And, I think I've never served with anybody who did not truly believe, in my mind, that they were not doing the correct thing. Was I skeptical sometimes? Yeah, but walking away, I never felt like, oh, you just wanted to vote with your buddies just to vote with your buddies. But sometimes I felt like, you didn't have the folks that I would like to have a better result out here at hand. But we represent the whole city when you're elected, and voting with your buddies is literally the citizens. So if the citizens don't think you're doing a good job, they'll keep you there, or they'll kick you out, or they'll fall asleep at the wheel and be here today. 20 candidates.
Blake.
So I'm the oldest candidate running at 57 years old.
I'm 64.
Oh, well, that's right. Oh, gosh.
62.
Tonight, at least, I'm the oldest.
Okay.
But I take the word representation very seriously. I am a native of Asheville. I've seen this city change and grow for the better, for the worse in some places, but mostly overall a very positive city that makes an impact. The thing I can tell you is that, overall, I walk into this to listen more and talk less. And I know people say that's cliche, but when making it through the primary is the ultimate way to take the next 7 months and learn. And actually get out there and listen to what's important to everyone. To represent the people of Asheville. It starts with listening, and it starts with putting ego aside. The last thing I'll say is I think that when I sat down with a lot of the council members, I can remember a lot of them said, Blake, this is like a game of chess. You got to be careful. Well, that's too bad because I don't play chess. But what I do play is Connect 4. And if I can find the right 4 folks on council, we can get the best ideas done. Hey, that was my best line of the night. Who wants to follow that? See that?
I can't follow that, but I'll play you Connect 4. But I like to say, because Blake likes to tell people, he's the oldest, I'm one of the youngest candidates running. And I'm not afraid to say no. I just want to answer that question because it could seem daunting to elect someone who might, quote unquote, be the youngest and, oh, she's just going to do what they say. That's not how I roll. I'm willing to ask the questions if the questions are not going to be answered, or if the outcomes are not going to benefit those who elected me in the position, which again is the residents who live here, then I'm not for it. If it doesn't benefit community, or if community wants to say no, I'm for saying no. And if community is for saying yes, I'm for saying yes, because I represent you guys as a whole, as all of Asheville.
I have a follow-up for all of you. It'll be, because a lot of our audience questions got lumped together. A lot of that has been about community, right? And I think everyone's using that word equally. I don't know that everyone's depiction of community looks the same. And so I'm curious, what does accountability to this room and this community look like when you're navigating between the micro communities and trying to be honest about what you can and cannot do while you play Connect 4?
So since I have the mic, I'll just give an example. I was reached out early on in my campaign from the Happy Valley community, and this was a really good time for me to get them to understand that the things that the Legacy Neighborhood Coalition was advocating for was some of the things that they're advocating for. Oh, this massive development is about to come in. Our property taxes are gonna go up. We might be displaced. Somebody else is actually singing the same song throughout different communities. We need to find out, or we need to realize that we're all singing the same songs. North Asheville might has a different verse than South Asheville, but when we find out the chorus that we can sing together as a community, then we can come together and see Asheville really thrive, because people fail to realize that some of the work that's being done by our community in here translates throughout all communities throughout of Asheville. So I respect the work that's been done by the Legacy Neighborhood groups, because it is something that will be, and it will be looked at and adopted probably throughout all the neighborhoods around here. And that's my specific example, but I show up, obviously. I have to show up as who I am every day. So, and my family is very much a melting pot of what Asheville looks like. I have all hues and rays of colors in my family, diversity of different backgrounds as far as what they're choosing as they're getting older. So I feel like I can definitely represent and bridge and bring a gap being on city council.
Accountability to this room looks like not forgetting where I come from. My grandfather was born 50 years after the Civil War. He was in the Air Force in World War II. My grandmother, if I put a picture up next to the mayor, my grandmother looks like her. I'm serious. And so accountability means that knowing the struggles that the people who came before me, what they had to go through. Because when we're sitting here talking about a Black Town Hall and all of the issues that affect the Black community, it's not just about something that happened yesterday. We're not talking about something that happened yesterday. So understanding the legacy of how we got here, why we got here, who put us here, and who died for the right to vote, who got me into a position to be on this stage. And remember, that is who I am accountable to in this room. Not the people who are currently here, but the people who are no longer here that got me to this position. That's how I'm accountable to you in this room.
Anyone else? Jared.
So I was actually having a conversation about this before our forum, which is right relationship. So that's maintaining relationships when You don't need access to information, right? Not coming to the community here and just saying, hey, I'm about to make a decision, give me the download. I don't like that. Don't give me the download. Show up at the barbecue, bring food, make contributions, make offerings to the community, and be in a relationship with the community on a continual basis. That's what all of us should be doing here. You know, we should have an open door policy, but also, if that open door policy includes invitations into spaces, we should go there and feel comfortable. So that's what it looks like.
Pass the mic to CJ, and we'll do closing statements. Everybody has 1 minute to make your final pitch to this room.
So I think Blake said, listening is really important, and I think there's a lot I don't know. And I think kind of like Blake said, it starts with listening, but I also think it ends with listening. Listening, trying to enact change, and then following up to see what's going on, how did that work, did that not work, coming back to the table, and I think that's really important.
Everyone, go ahead.
Just want to add one quick thing. I've been thinking about this on the campaign trail. I think city council is almost like a vegetable salad. Like, I like broccoli, but I don't like cauliflower. And eventually, we all have to put it together to make a vegetable salad because we represent Asheville. You know, we've got to put ego aside. This is such a pivotal, critical time for our city. You need a track record of bringing people together.
Maggie.
So this is our closing statement.
Yes, ma'am.
Last question. So first of all, thank you all. I bet a lot of you who came last night also. Oh, you guys are so dedicated. It's awesome. So thank you for coming tonight as well. Thank you for organizing this. I think that forums like this are, this is my second time I've run for office, right? And so it's been a very interesting experience to go like, what were those conversations like then, 4 years ago? And then all the relationship and conversation and policy issues in between. And so I think that as I look to be reelected and continue serving, I think that maintaining the relationships that I've been building from the first campaign to this campaign and all the way through is a major part of the accountability I want to offer. I also think that it's really important to be really grounded in how difficult the budget situation is right now, how difficult recovery looks right now. Our economy still has not recovered. We still are at a higher unemployment rate than before Helene. And so we need to really make sure that as we're moving forward, that we're keeping the important things moving that need to keep moving, and then we're pushing the balls on things that have been stalling out.
Thanks. Keith. Yeah, just down the line.
Okay, you can go.
Ah, okay. I truly believe that the Black community is the canaries in the coal mine. And so everything, what's that they say, when the Black community has the flu, white America's just getting the sniffles. Mm-hmm. And so everything that happens to us eventually happens to you. Mm-hmm. And so moving forward, we need results. Mm-hmm. We need results. We can all agree on the same stuff, but we really need results. You want to see the affordability issues tackled. You want to see the budget tackled. You want to see the infrastructure tackled. You want to see all of these different things that improve your quality of life as a citizen in the city of Asheville. And you have to really ask yourself, if you get the chance to talk with folks, you can talk to me and I can talk to you about the results that I've been a part of. Ask folks that are currently on council the results that they're part of, and ask the folks who are running what results they want to bring. But I'm about results, and I want to bring that to you.
Nina.
I'm Nina Ireland. I'm a second generation native. My mother grew up off of Burton Street. I was raised off of the East End community. I have beautiful children who are here with me tonight who will be a part of the next, hopefully, homeowners in this city. And we can't make that a reality if we don't start making it now. I'm trying to be a homeowner in this city and the reality of that. I'm here for the community. I'm also a hospitality worker, so I get and a hairstylist, so I get from both areas. I get it from a trade that has given me my livelihood to work, but I also get it from a touristic standpoint of a livelihood that is very much feast or famine here in the city. We have to develop our workforce development, offer apprenticeships, offer night classes and different things to expand our work, and divvy up the different economic engines here. I would like to earn you guys' vote. I would like to meet with anybody more. I tried to give a little bit more of an introduction about me because I met a lot of new faces and see a lot of new faces in this room tonight, along with many people that I do know. Yeah, I won't keep it going. Here you go. Thanks.
Thank you for having us.
My name is Dan Farrell again, and I just want to talk about what people's policies are. What do they actually say they want to do, and how is that going to be different from what's been done over the last 15 years? Do we want to see change happen? We have to ask these questions of all of the people who are looking to be on City Council. How is it different than what we've done? What I bring to the table is something different. I bring a different way of looking at housing, of affordability, of like the core issues that are affecting all neighborhoods in Asheville. And I want to use my time, my energy, my effort to make sure that everyone gets a fair chance, everyone gets a fair shake to live in this beautiful city. And I just completely froze up. I am so sorry with the last 10 seconds of my time. I'm just going to say thank you all for having us. Thank you for the wonderful questions, and thank you.
Jerry?
I'd just like to say, I'll go, thank you, appreciate the space, appreciate all the community partners who've put this together and helped communicate it out. I'll do like the worst thing a politician should do, which is to say I wouldn't vote for me necessarily if I'm in this room and I'm part of the Black Town Hall. I mean, we're at a critical tipping point for the Black community in Asheville. And so taking into account the incumbents' records, taking into account what the incumbents look like. Right now, there are two Black women up to be voted as to whether they remain in office or are removed. And you know, then Maggie is here tonight. She's an incumbent. You have an opportunity to look at her record. Same with Keith. If you feel like this could be a tipping point for Black Asheville, then I would say this election is a critical point, and getting out the vote is the most important thing you can do. And making sure that that person looks out for Black Asheville is critical, paramount, because not all neighborhoods are equal.
Say it again.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You got some time. Yeah. Before I let them go, while I have your attention, I have two plugs. One, tomorrow night, Dr. Amaris Lavender will be moderating with the congressional candidates. Same time, 6 to 9, program starts at 7. And also, I have a note here that this Saturday, the documentary Black in Asheville is being shown at the Asheville Community Theater, and we encourage you all to go and see it. Thank you all for coming.
What time?
What time?
I'm not sure, you have to register, they're free, you just want to be online and register, I think it's like 7 o'clock.
You have to register, they're free. Yes. You said you think it's 7 o'clock?
I think.
We think it's 7 o'clock. Yeah. Thank y'all.